Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something I think, well, pretty much everyone wonders about at some point.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Why isn't financial education, a bigger thing? Especially for younger people, just starting out.
Ah, yes. The big question.
Exactly. So we're diving into why it's so important, what things look like right now, and what our sources are telling us.
We've got quite a mix this time.
We really do. Everything from hard research like studies to, well, online chats.
Yeah. Data from places like the National Financial Educators Council, insights from accounting bodies, academic studies, stuff from NESE, Alplowns.
And even Reddit from the Artfire community.
Right. So a real 360-degree look at why financial smarts matter so much.
And our mission here is pretty straightforward. Pull out the key insights, maybe find a few surprises, just so you get a clearer picture of financial education and why it's, frankly, crucial.
Okay, let's get into it. Maybe start with a number that really grabs your attention. It shows what not knowing about money is actually costing people.
Hit me with it.
Okay, so the National Financial Educators Council, they estimated that Americans lost over $436 billion
Billion with a B.
with a B in 2022 alone, just from a lack of financial knowledge.
Wow, that's huge. How does that break down per person?
On average, it worked out to about $8,819 per individual.
Nearly $2,000 each.
Yeah.
And where do those losses come from? Is it bad investments or debt or fees or...
Well, that's the thing. The number itself is stark, but it likely covers all of that. Poor investment choices, definitely. High interest debt, getting out of control. Maybe not understanding fees on accounts or loans, how they just nibble away at your money.
Right. Knowing where the money is lost helps figure out where we need to focus education, yeah.
Exactly. It gives us a target.
It's a really sobering number. Makes you think about the actual mistakes people are making. And it's not just hurting individuals, is it? There are bigger ripple effects.
Oh, absolutely. The Institute of Public Accountants pointed this out. Widespread financial illiteracy, it means lower savings overall, lower investment rates.
And that slows down the whole economy.
Yeah, think about it. Less capital for businesses to grow, innovate, it impacts everything. And then there's the link to higher debt, more bankruptcies.
Which puts a strain on the financial system itself.
Precisely. And it doesn't hit everyone equally either.
That's a crucial point. Who gets hit hardest?
Well, the analysis suggests it disproportionately affects lower income folks, marginalized communities, so it can trap people in cycles. Lack of knowledge makes it harder to build wealth, escape poverty. It just widens that wealth gap we already see.
Okay, so the stakes are incredibly high. You'd assume teaching this stuff would be, like, priority number one in schools.
Right, I think so.
But it's not always the case.
Far from it, actually. One of our sources mentioned that only 21 states in the U.S. require a financial literacy course to graduate high school.
Only 21. That seems low. So most kids are graduating without it.
A huge chunk of them, yeah. Heading into adult life without that basic financial toolkit.
Why? What's the blockage? It feels so fundamental.
A big reason, according to the article, why financial literacy is not taught in schools is testing.
Testing?
Yeah. Financial literacy isn't usually on the big standardized tests. And, what gets tested often gets taught.
Because test scores impact funding, school rankings.
Yeah.
That whole cycle.
Exactly. It's a frustrating reality.
But the arguments for teaching it seem so strong.
Oh, they're undeniable. Multiple sources make the case. First, it's just practical prep for the real world.
Credit cards, student loans, taxes.
Right. All the stuff they're going to face almost immediately. Without some grounding, they're walking into potential minefields.
It's like sending someone into a game without explaining the rules first.
That's a great analogy. Then there's the equity piece.
Right. You mentioned that earlier.
For lots of students, especially from lower income backgrounds, school might be their only shot at getting this knowledge.
So making it standard levels the playing field a bit.
That's the idea. It gives everyone a baseline understanding, could potentially help address some of those economic gaps over time.
Yeah. And it's not just about avoiding bad stuff. It's about building good habits, too.
Yes, absolutely. Budgeting, saving regularly, managing credit wisely, starting those habits early, that lays a foundation for financial stability long term.
You can see how that could reduce student debt down the line, maybe make communities more financially resilient overall.
For sure, the potential benefits are huge.
Okay, schools are clearly vital. But what about learning at home? Does what parents teach matter?
It seems to matter quite a bit. We looked at a study from Eric,
What did it find?
Its main takeaway was that when parents actively teach kids about money during childhood,
Actively teach. You mean like sit-down lessons?
sort of, the study defined it as explicit teaching, talking about credit cards, explaining debt, how budgeting works, why saving matters.
So not just kids picking things up by watching their parents.
Exactly. It's about the direct conversations, the actual instruction, similar to what you'd get in a formal course.
Yeah, that makes a difference later on.
The study found a link. Those kids, as emerging adults, tended to manage their money better, paying bills on time, budgeting, saving more often.
Interesting. So those kitchen table talks about finances, they actually stick.
That's what the data suggests. And interestingly, it didn't matter if the child was a boy or a girl.
Oh, that goes against some old assumptions, right?
Hmm?
About who gets taught what about money.
It does, though we should mention limitations.
Always good to be critical.
Yeah.
What were they?
Well, it relied on adults remembering their childhoods, which can be fuzzy.
Sure. Hindsight isn't always 20/20.
Right. And how they measured that overt financial education was just a single yes-no question on a bigger survey. Pretty broad.
So maybe not super precise?
Could be better. The researchers themselves said future studies should dig into how parents teach in more detail.
Still, it really points to the power of those early home lessons.
Hmm.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly to something really critical. Equity. Making sure everyone gets access to good financial education.
Yes, absolutely vital. An article from NEF-E, that's the National Endowment for Financial Education, really hammers this home.
What are they seeing?
They point out that access just isn't equal. Quality financial ed isn't reaching everyone in the same way.
Are there specific gaps they mention?
One concerning thing is trust, especially after those bank failures in 2023.
Right. Confidence took a hit.
Big time. And particularly among Black African American and Hispanic Latino adults, trust levels dropped significantly.
And if you don't trust the institutions, you're probably less likely to engage with them, right? Or seek out financial advice.
Exactly. It creates a barrier. Plus, their research found that 16% of U.S. adults overall felt they'd faced bias or discrimination in the financial sector.
16%. That's not insignificant.
And it jumps to 31% for women reporting negative experiences.
Wow. Those are really worrying figures. So how does financial education fit into tackling these kinds of systemic problems?
Look, education alone isn't a magic bullet for discrimination, let's be clear on that. But it is a crucial tool, especially for empowering marginalized groups. Giving them the knowledge builds confidence.
Helps them navigate the system better.
Yes, make more informed choices, maybe spot exploitative practices, advocate for themselves more effectively within the system as it exists.
So it's about arming people with knowledge to better deal with the landscape, even while we work on the bigger issues.
Precisely. It helps level the playing field, at least somewhat.
Okay. Now, thinking about the future. Technology. It's changing everything, including how we handle money. How does financial ed keep up?
That's a huge question. An OpLoans article we looked at talks about this shift to digital.
Online courses, videos, that kind of thing.
Yeah, all that stuff is booming. Online courses, videos, webinars. But they also make a good point. Traditional resources, like books, still have their place. People learn differently.
Right. They mentioned the VARK model. Visual, auditory.
Read, write, and kinesthetic, yes. The idea is that different online formats can hit different learning styles.
So videos for visual learners.
Yeah.
Text for read-write types.
Exactly. That variety online means you can potentially reach more people in ways that actually work for them.
And webinars seem to be a bit of a mix.
Yeah, the article highlighted webinars because they can be really interactive. Polls, Q&As.
So more hands-on, even online. That's the kinesthetic part.
Right. That engagement factor is key. Some folks even think that interactive webinar style could be like the future of financial ed delivery.
Interesting. But does all this tech bring new challenges for financial literacy too?
Oh, definitely. The article stressed that education has to cover modern tools, mobile banking, budgeting apps.
Because digital money feels different.
That's a big concern. It's not tangible, right? You don't physically hold it. One expert quoted, Jim Wasserman, called it ethereal.
Ethereal. I like that. Easy come, easy go, maybe.
Potentially easier to overspend when you don't see the money leaving your hand. So teaching how to manage this intangible money is critical now.
That makes so much sense. And then there's social media, streaming.
Huge influences. Financial influencers, targeted ads. They can really sway spending, especially for young people.
So financial literacy needs to include media literacy too. Learning to be critical consumers online.
Absolutely. You need the skills to see through the hype, resist that impulsive buy driven by an Instagram post. It's a whole new layer.
A layer previous generations just didn't have to deal with in the same way.
Oh.
Okay, let's switch gears again. Let's hear from the internet trenches. Reddit. What was the vibe on that R-Fire thread about teaching kids finance?
Well, as you might expect on Reddit, it was passionate.
Lots of strong opinions.
Definitely. A lot of users echoed what we've been saying, frustration. Why didn't I learn this in school? I felt so unprepared. That kind of thing.
Yeah, that seems to be a common feeling. But was it all just agreement, or were there other angles?
Oh, there were lots of other angles. It got complex. Several people pointed out that just putting finance in a classroom doesn't mean kids will learn it. Relevance. If it doesn't connect to their immediate lives, their current wants or needs, their eyes might just glaze over.
The teenage attention span challenge.
Pretty much. Someone mentioned trying to teach tax details to uninterested high schoolers. Good luck with that, right?
I can imagine. It needs to feel real to them somehow.
Exactly. And some argued that you often need real-world experience for these concepts to truly click. You know, actually getting a paycheck, paying a bill.
So learning by doing, essentially.
To some extent, yeah. Others pushed back, saying, hey, it is taught in some places, but maybe the quality or consistency isn't there.
Was there skepticism about student engagement, even if it was offered everywhere?
Yes. A few people chiming in, possibly teachers, shared stories about low interest levels when they tried to cover it.
So what were the suggestions then? Just give up.
No, not at all. Some suggested focusing on the absolute basics. Save money. Beware of credit card debt.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Foundational stuff.
Right. Another idea was project-based learning. Make it hands-on, like simulating managing a budget or something.
Trying to make it more relevant and engaging that way.
Yeah. And then, of course, there was the more cynical take.
Oh, what was that?
The idea that maybe the system benefits from people not being financially savvy.
Whoa. How so?
Well, the thinking goes, if people don't understand debt well or compound interest, maybe they're more likely to take on loans, use credit cards freely.
Which benefits banks and lenders.
That was the argument from a few commenters, that a financially illiterate population might be easier to manage, less likely to question things. A bit critical, but it reflects a certain frustration.
Definitely gives you something to think about. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. The costs, the schools, parents, equity, tech, even Reddit rants. Pulling it all together, what are the clear paths forward? What solutions seem most promising?
Several key ideas keep coming up. First, parents. The importance of involving parents just seems undeniable, based on that ERIC study and what the NFEC says.
So programs shouldn't just focus on kids, but maybe help parents teach too.
Exactly. Maybe courses could include tips for parents on talking finance with their kids, perhaps even policy nudges to encourage it.
Creating that financial conversation across generations. Makes sense. What else?
Partnerships. Schools linking up with outside organizations that specialize in financial literacy, like that Cobb Global Outreach, Inc., mentioned in one source.
Bringing in expertise.
Right, and making sure schools have good, easy-to-use resources. Teachers need support to teach this effectively.
And organizations like the NFEC setting standards, providing those resources, that helps build a strong foundation.
Absolutely. We also heard about things that seem to work, like simulations. Junior Achievement's Finance Park, for example, it actually showed changes in student behavior.
So practical application helps.
It seems so. And looking even broader, the World Bank has recommendations. Use social networks, target underserved groups specifically, and make the material engaging, not just dry lectures.
It really sounds like there's no single magic bullet. It needs a coordinated effort.
That's the big takeaway, I think. It takes schools, families, community groups, policymakers, all working together.
Because the cost of not doing it is just too high.
Exactly. Financial illiteracy has real costs for individuals and for society. The need is clear, urgent even, but figuring out the best way to teach it and get people genuinely engaged, especially young people, that's the ongoing challenge.
Formal education, informal learning at home, both absolutely key.
Both essential parts of the puzzle.
So as we wrap this deep dive, what's the final thought you want to leave with our listeners?
I guess it's this. The financial world is changing fast. Technology, new products, new risks. It's complex. So think about how you can actively keep learning, keep improving your own financial understanding.
Take ownership.
Yeah. And if you have younger people in your life, kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, Think about how you can empower them. Consider all these angles we talked about, the big picture, the personal struggles, the possible solutions. How can
Mm.
you play a part?
That's a great challenge for everyone. And if you do want to explore more, definitely check out some of the organizations we touched on. The NFEC, LTIA, the FinRA Investor Education Foundation. Lots of great resources out there.
Absolutely. Keep learning.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.